Joining me now, Mike Schnackenberg, Head of Distribution at Eventide Asset Management. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Caroline.
Mike, this is an interesting one because most investment products focus solely on returns, but Eventide says it also cares about a company's impact on the world, and you specifically take a biblical worldview. So explain how that philosophy works in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even before diving into philosophy, we've identified a problem in the marketplace that we want to solve. And that problem is really around values misalignment. And what we found is that the vast majority of faith-driven individuals are unknowingly investing in and profiting from the products and services that are causing the problems that in many cases they're praying that God will solve. And we feel like that values misalignment is unnecessary. And honestly has kind of been unique to investing. In every other area of our lives, our values are driving how we vote, how we give, how we parent, but we've effectively been intermediated or even divorced from our values within our investment portfolio. And so what we're trying to do at Eventide is really promote a philosophy around investing as ownership. And as owners of a business, we have an ethical responsibility to understand how those products and services are creating value or detracting value, to your point, for the global common good. And so one way that we've done that is really think through, how do you take a love your neighbor approach to investing? What does that look like? And for us, we had to figure out who are the neighbors of a business. And so we've spent a great deal of time developing a framework called Business 360, which is essentially identifying those 6 neighbors, which we would say are customers, employees, supply chain, host communities, environment, and society. And then doing a deep assessment on how those underlying products and services are creating value or extracting value for each of those neighbors.
Okay, so can you dig in a bit more about what qualifies a company as creating value for the global common good?
Yeah, we believe that business has great opportunity for positive impact. And even in the faith-based investing space, there are many negative screened options, which we believe is a great step forward. At Eventide, we take an avoid, embrace, and engage approach. So we want to avoid any company who has products and services that are, again, detracting value from the neighbors of that business. But then we're going a step further and saying, okay, if we're going to root for what we own, what do we want to be investing in? Where can our next dollar have the greatest impact as we invest in the market? And so we've developed a team, a dedicated team of 5 within our Business 360 function that are coordinating with our fundamental active investment team, really in hopes of becoming, being in the top 1% of knowing these companies inside and out. And that's beyond just the financials. We believe to be excellent investors in this marketplace with such information that is everywhere and easily accessible, you really need to get into the qualitative non-financial aspects of a business to effectively understand culture, leadership, identify attributes that are going to be pointing towards not just good performance, but pointing towards positive impact for those that business is trying to serve.
Can you be a bit more specific, though, about what kinds of industries or business practices you would typically avoid because of this values lens?
Yeah, so our process typically leads us away from areas like communication services, even consumer staples to an extent, defense. And the reason for that is we are looking to avoid companies who have products and services that are leading to addictive behavior. And that can range from alcohol, tobacco, gambling, et cetera, even social media. We're also looking to avoid anything that is destructing life. And so that typically takes us away from those areas. But again, we're looking to not just avoid, we're looking to identify where the greatest kind of win-win opportunity exists. And that's win-win from a return standpoint, but also from a values and impact standpoint. So we've historically had a great expertise and continue to in the healthcare space, where we see great opportunities for not just performance, but also impact. And also have had investments across tech and other key areas of the marketplace that allow us to get really diversified exposure, but leaning into products that are creating value.
Yeah, I was taking a look at your large cap growth ETF, ESLG, and so I see names like Nvidia and Broadcom in there, but not Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Alphabet. So that makes a bit more sense now in terms of why you're leaving those out. I do think, though, there's for the greater good, but then there's also the good of the portfolio that I'm sure investors are considering as well. So how does applying a values lens impact long-term performance? Does it help it? Does it hurt it? Or does it just simply own or change the kinds of companies you own?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the large cap growth area is an interesting area for us to take this approach within. And you rightly called out that we do not invest in any of the Mag 7 except for Nvidia. And that's really due to areas of focus within those firms that are, again, in our view, value destructive. So what we're really excited about with the systematic line of ETFs that we've launched, which the large cap growth ETF, ESLG, that you just mentioned would fall within, is this idea that we believe faith-driven investors don't have the luxury of investing passively because indices are inherently values agnostic. However, we've seen the great value of long-term equity market exposure, and we are very supportive of that opportunity to help investors meet their goals. What we wanted to create was a win-win opportunity where we could provide that more predictable risk and return as we seek to get as close as we can to that benchmark, but by only investing in the products and services that are creating value. And so within that strategy, we're screening out nearly 70% of the investable universe, but then seeking to optimize back to that similar risk return feel of the underlying benchmark. Now, that is in hopes of not just providing exposure, but also providing the opportunity for excellent returns moving forward. And back to the point about what's that?
Can you beat the market, though? Can you have similar gains to what, say, the overall S&P 500? What do the returns look like?
Yeah, so our hope is to certainly have similar returns to that you would receive with the S&P 500. We're building these products on a 17-year base of fundamental active investment success. And so we really do believe that by focusing on the qualitative aspects of a business and seeking value creation, there is an underappreciated source of alpha there within. And so our intention is to, quote unquote, win the investment game. We just choose to do so in a very specific way, which is values driven through a biblical worldview.
Just quickly, what's the gold standard company? I see you have a small cap ETF, a US market, large cap growth, large cap value. You also have an international ETF coming out. But is there one company that's like the gold standard that checks all of the boxes?
It's hard to pick one. We love all our companies equally, but I will say the gold standard is a company that is operating with servant leadership, that is caring for their employees, that is creating value for their customers, that is operating well within their supply chain, that's being good stewards of the environment, adding value to that host community, and ultimately adding value to society through their existence as well as the products and services that they're putting into the marketplace. And we think many of those companies exist. And our tagline is investing that makes the world rejoice. We really believe that business has time and time again shown the ability to really increase the standard of living, but also directly contribute to human flourishing. So any company that is helping us achieve those goals, or maybe better helping their stakeholders achieve those goals, would be a gold standard business in our view.
Just quickly, because we're just about out of time, this very much feels like it would fall under ESG, but ESG investing has very much faded from the conversations that I'm having. So what's demand like? Is this still pretty niche, or are you seeing broader demand? And if so, why is it gaining traction?
That's a great question. And we really do feel like we're in the early innings of what could be a transformational shift in the way that people invest. And really one of the big trends in the industry is the faith alignment in investment portfolios. And as we think about that market, $22 trillion is sitting in the hands of church-attending Christians. But again, as I said at the outset, many of those don't even know that there's an opportunity to align their values with their investments. The reason that we believe that this movement will be a bit more persistent is, just as I mentioned, we're rooted in a biblical worldview. we believe that the lens that we're looking through is rooted in unchanging biblical truths. Like, these are very persistent. We've seen over time how humans flourish and ultimately how companies can thrive. And we believe overlaying that worldview and approach is going to lead to not just values alignment for our clients, but also the opportunity for excellent returns.
Well, it's really interesting perspective, and we appreciate you shedding some light on your world. Mike Schnackenberg, Head of Distribution at Eventide Asset Management, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Caroline. My pleasure.